Tuesday, 2:30, awesemo.com golf show. Myself, Ben Razza, here with Fantasy Golf Man. He's in a new location, obviously, but he still made the show. That is commitment. We are breaking down the Farmers, which is an actual real tournament. We got a lot to get to. But first, Tim, how was La Quinta and the Amex for you?
It was pretty brutal. I don't like that event anyway. I don't like the 3-course rotation. I don't like the million birdies. And yeah, did not do well. Didn't really enjoy it. Kisner was bad. And that was pretty much it. But this is a real tournament. So yeah, I'm excited about this. I'm almost literally in my mom's basement. I know people like to make fun of DFS people living in their mom's basement. So yeah, it's Florida, so we don't have basements here, but this is about as close to mom's basement as I could get. So
yeah, I mean, Aaron Wise makes me closer to that situation each and every week that I play him, but that is neither here nor there. Go ahead.
There was some egregious. I love the victory laps last week, though, of people like, yes, he's like 5 under through 7. And then you go back and the guy missed the cut. It's like, it was pretty funny to see some of that stuff where like people were victory lapping. And there were legitimately guys that were like, I don't know what the cut was, like 8 under or something ridiculous. But I just went back and I was like, oh, that guy missed the cut. I remember somebody victory lapping him on Thursday. So.
Of course. I mean, every time there's a birdie fest, I think people just naturally are overly excited because your lineups look good because you're like, oh, my worst guy is 4 under. But when the cut is 2 over, that means he's 7 over. That's just what we have to deal with. I like more this speed where it should be in the teens last year notwithstanding. We'll talk about that in a second. I know you have a ton of insight on why that happened in terms of a low score, but I do want to say right off the top, Fantasy Draft sponsoring the show, which we really do appreciate. As we've talked about, the rake adds up really fast, can be up to 30% of your bankroll. But Fantasy Draft has solved that. 100% of the entry fees going to the prize pools, going into your accounts, and it really does make a difference. So if you haven't signed up and you want to, promo code Awesemo, get over there. They have a unique golf format, 7 guys, top 6 scores count, so you can take some risks. And it's an exciting product. So check that out. This is a stacked field, especially when you consider where we've been at. But before we get into that 2-course breakdown, do you even factor in the North Course? Because you're only getting 1 round there when you're kind of examining this tournament.
Yeah, I don't factor in the North Course. Like you said, 1 round, it's an easier course than the South Course. But yeah, I'm focusing everything on the South Course. As far as my research and everything goes, it might as well be 4 rounds at the South Course. And I tweeted out, this event should really just be, I don't know why they have the North Course. I would like to see that just go away. I'd rather see all 4 rounds play at the South Course. But yeah, I don't take that course into account. What happens there, it is what it is. I don't think there's what can you really do? I don't know. It's hard enough to find course fit for 1 course, and I think we actually have it this week, let alone trying to melt together 2 different tracks. Yeah, that just seems like a mess to me. So yeah, I'm just focusing on South Course.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Listen, the North Course, you're going to need to score there. You're going to need to do your part, especially because of course, your 1 round there is going to be either Thursday or Friday, and that's going to determine if you find the weekend. But it's really difficult to start. I mean, never mind 3 courses like we had last week. That's just a joke. I worry about the South Course, and it's a beast. I know these guys can go low pretty much every week, and I'm not saying this is going to be where, carnage like a U.S. Open. The South Course is a beast, though. It is long, it is tough, and it will cause some problems, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I mean, 7,700 yards, that's insanely long. Par 72. It has hosted a U.S. Open. I think, I feel like it's hosting a U.S. Open coming up here in the future again. I could be wrong about that. But obviously, it's a major championship quality venue. And, last year, we were talking about the winning score is 21 under. That was totally out of the blue. The prior years before that, 2018 was Day at 10 under. Then we had Rahm at 13. We had Sneds at 6 under. Day again at 9 under. I mean, to see the winning score at a par 72 course where one of the courses is actually not that difficult, to see there not even get to double digits under par, I mean, that should tell you something about the difficulty of this course. And so I love this event just in general. It's kind of like, to me, it feels like the real beginning of the golf season, like the first real event. You got a real field. real course. I mean, yeah, everything lines up for a good week this week. But yeah, it's a tough track. It's a tough, long, hard par 72.
So just to touch on that, yeah, it's long, it's tough. Driving distance is going to be the theme of the week. I get it. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. Uh, do you throw out guys that don't excel at driving distance, or do you think it's just a benefit to be someone who's, one of the longer hitters out there?
I mean, I think driving distance is a huge advantage this week, but if you have real strong feelings about a guy who's not very long off the tee and you can put together a good case to play him, I don't have a problem with that. I'm not saying you have to play all bombers. You have to, X out anybody who doesn't bomb it. But to me, you have to have a really good reason on why you're playing a guy, because this is one of the few courses where I think driving distance, obviously we talk about it, it's an advantage at every course, but this is one of the courses, and maybe the main course on tour, where it's a very important factor. So yeah, I'm going to definitely bump up the bombers. We've seen shorter hitters have some success here. Sneds obviously has a good record here. So, I mean, obviously they can get it done, but yeah, driving distance, huge advantage for me. And if you're a shorter hitter, yeah, I'm going to have a really good reason to play. There's going to have to be a bunch of other factors all pointing in that player's direction.
Agreed. I think it's a mistake to automatically just cancel those guys, especially guys who are playing well. They can handle it. It's just not ideal. We're going to get to some of them because there's one guy in particular that I like quite a bit. He's the opposite of a bomber. Up top, no surprise. These guys aren't bombers. They're just incredibly good players. They happen to bomb it. We've got Rory. We've got Rahm. We got Tiger, Justin Rose, and Xander. Those are the big five in terms of the pricing. I mean, listen, in these fields like Sony and a couple others you've talked about, like you have like one guy who maybe belongs there, and then there's other guys filling in the price. This is as strong as it gets. How do you organize what is five ridiculously good golfers?
Yeah, it's really tough because there's tough decisions to make. I kind of group Rory and Rahm together.
Yes.
Tiger's tough for me. He just always feels like he's going to be at an uncomfortable price. Right when I feel like, yeah, this might be a good spot for him, he gets more expensive. I don't think I'm playing Tiger here, even though he's won here a million times. That was like 20 years ago. So really for me, it's either Rory or Rahm, or do I want to go down to guys like Xander or Decky? I'll start at the top. I prefer Rory over Rahm. I mean, both obviously amazing drivers of the ball, both really good form. For me, it's just the price. It's a $300 difference. I just think Rory is still a half a cut above Rahm. You just look at all the quality wins that Rory has. You go and look at Rahm. He's won here. That's probably the best. It was the best PGA Tour event he's won, but he's won a lot of events on the European Tour, the Irish Open, the DP World Tour Championship. He's won the American Express. Just not the quality wins I think that Rory has. And I think for 300 more, I prefer Rory. Obviously, they're both playing great. I think people will gravitate towards Rahm due to the course history, due to him being $300 cheaper, and we've seen more of Rahm recently. But I think I prefer Rory this week.
What a world. You prefer Rory. I prefer Rahm. Going against Rory, not to say I won't have Rory exposure. And for me, it was pretty simple. I think they're in their own tier, really close. I'm going to kind of back what I did last week, which is I have not seen Rory it's been months. Am I saying he's going to come in and just be terrible and not know how to play golf? Of course not, but he's the most expensive guy in the entire field. We saw Rahm at least play in the TOC. For me, that's just a little bump. I feel a little more comfortable. We know he likes this course. He's won here. He seems to play here every week, year, and I think that's going to continue going forward. You're not going to have many negatives, no matter who you take up top. Just little preference for me with Rahm. Ownership could sway that. They're both going to be popular. We know that. I hope the course history doesn't bring too many people to Rahm's camp, though, relative to what we normally see. And then just to echo your thoughts on Tiger, it's so hard for me to get there because I would just rather pay up for one of the two guys we talked about, or just take a somewhat significant savings to a guy like Rose or Xander, who are both in fine spots themselves.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like coming into the week, I felt like oh, maybe this is a spot where I want to play Tiger at like 9,800. And then it's like, well, he's 10-8, and that just doesn't seem as appealing to me. Yeah, so I don't think I'll get there. I'd probably go down to Xander at 10-1.
San Diego State guy. Home
Yeah,
game.
San Diego guy. Last 4 starts, second, 10th, second, and 10th. Great driver of the ball. Not a good course history here. I don't really care about that. I don't see why this isn't a great course for him. He was 25th here last year. Prior to that, 3 missed cuts in a row. But again, we've talked about this before. I mean, we can't really articulate why this is a bad course. I think it's a good course for him. I don't know why he hasn't played well here. Maybe he's not cheap, but maybe that's keeping the price down a little bit. It might keep the ownership away. He's playing great. So yeah, if I'm not going Rory or Rahm, I think I'm probably going to go Xander and hope that course history kind of keeps people off of him.
No doubt. I'm comfortable. I mean, I'm not a big Xander guy in general, but I'm very comfortable with him here. You're just, you're still weighing. You've got Justin Rose there. I like Decky. We can start to move into that next range. He gained a ton of strokes at the Sony. I know the drought is going on 2 years without a victory, but Decky seems to have the game in a spot that I'm pretty comfortable with. So I think you could start lineups with like Xander Decky and be very different. I have no problem doing that. It's going to be a little tougher if you want one of Rory or Rahm and still want a guy like Xander. That could be a pretty uncomfortable build.
Yeah, that's tough. And we didn't really talk about this, and we will when we get later in the show, but I don't know. There's not a ton of cheap guys I like this week. So yeah, when I was building, it was more like, Rory or Rahm, and then you're going down to like the 8K range. It's tough to make 2 of these guys up top work if you're starting with one of the really expensive guys. But yeah, I mean, you can make some kind of balanced type lineups by just going down to Decky. Ricky, I don't know. What do you think about him? He's got not a good course history here, playing decent, but I mean, is it really a bad course fit for Ricky? I mean, he's one of the best all-around games on tour, as far as if you count all 4 facets of the game. I can't see why this would be a poor course fit for him.
No, he's the farmer's guy, so he has to be here. Not that I think
maybe that's a bad. Yeah, maybe he's disgruntled because of that,
of the bad commercials. I mean, the other thing with Ricky's course history, I wouldn't be too concerned anyway, but he had great finishes. They were just a very long time ago. When he first started playing this event, he was in the mix. He came in 13th, he came in 6th. Then he's been on a horrible stretch, 4 missed cuts and 2 finishes in the 60s. Listen, we talk about this. We're going to say this a lot throughout the year. Course history is great, but I'm much more worried about it with a guy in the 6s than a guy in the 9s. I don't really care too much about the course fit for someone like Ricky, someone like Rahm, or like these guys, unless it's a super unique layout, they can handle it. So I have no problem with Ricky. He is next to 2 guys that we have to talk about. Gary Woodland and Tony Finau, who definitely fit the course. There's no doubt about that. They are going to be mega popular, I think. I think they're going to be the obvious pairing with either Rory or Rahm in most people's lineups.
Yeah, I mean, both great course fits, both great course history, but, popular players. I'm preferential to Woodland. I don't know which way you sway. I just trust Woodland more, especially in a tough event. I don't know. Finau, we only have shot tracker or shot link data from 2 of the rounds last week at the stadium course. So kind of incomplete data set from last week. But, the 2 rounds we have from Finau, they weren't good, right around even on the ball striking. So he didn't gain a ton off the tee and on approach, at least when he played the stadium course. The T14 looks good, but the ball striking wasn't good in those 2 rounds. And I just feel like I trust Woodland more. It's hard to get a feel for his form because, T7 at the Century, that's only a 30-man field. T7 at the Hero, not even a real event. That's like, an 18-man field. It kind of looks good on paper. Hard to make a ton of that, but I still am preferential to Woodland over Finau.
I have no problem with Woodland. Like you said, I don't know exactly where the game is, but it's a good course. Finau, he obviously scored really well on those other courses. I think we can infer that just from where he finished relative to his strokes gained. He loves this event. He's crushed it here. I like him. I worry about the ownership, and I'll have to deal with that. I will say, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I bet Finau to win this tournament. I know that's like as gross as it gets. The Puerto Rico Open champ in 2016, and that's about
There's a
it.
big correlation between the Puerto Rico Open and
That's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
You know about that. Him and Martin Trainer or whatever. Listen, I'm not going to get into the specifics of all on the betting side of it, but I feel comfortable enough with Finau to go there. I worry if he's 35% owned in some, higher stakes or smaller fields. That could be problematic. Patrick Reed, as usual, I think will be a little lost. If people are going to want to play either Woodland or Finau, people love Sungjae Im because he plays every week and he plays well most of these weeks. The two guys that I think are the wild cards in the nines, and then we can move on, are Patrick Reed and Jason Day. Do you have any interest in either of them, or are you going to stick to what we think are probably the more optimal plays?
Yeah, not much interest in Reed. I don't love the course fit for him. He, 9,200, not cheap. Obviously, he's playing pretty well. Miscut last time out. I just don't think this is a great course for him. Not a great driver of the ball. Obviously, scrambling can be important here. Any course that's where it's more difficult, we want to put more emphasis on around the green game. But yeah, I just don't love the fit for Reed. Day is tough because hasn't played much, hasn't played well. But the course history, is just amazing. Fifth, first, then two miscuts, and he has a first, second, and ninth. And you can see why. I mean, it's a hard course. It's a course that rewards length and can reward around the green game because of its difficulty. So it makes sense that Dave plays well here. I just don't think I'm going there. I think the course history will obviously bump up the ownership, and he just hasn't played well in quite a long time.
I'm worried. I mean, I'm a big Jason Gay guy. I just don't know where he's at. He pulled out of the President's Cup. We're gonna see, but I'm tempering expectations. If he comes out and does it, more power to him. It's hard for me to back a guy that I think is, he's live to play around and back out. He's live to just say, I'm working back and I'm trying to be ready for, Augusta.
He's liable to faint on the second green and then go on and win. I mean, it's like
also that. Yeah,
you have no idea what's going to happen.
If you see him going, you're probably in good shape because every time he does that, 7 birdies later, good things are happening. But I'm not gonna really. Yeah, I do say though. I mean, I looked. Do you think I want to step back because I wanted to ask you this real quick? You see any correlation to Firestone?
I mean, yeah, both. I think they're both somewhat difficult driving courses. They reward length. I don't know. That's probably
okay. No, that's fair.
Tigers dominated both of them. I mean,
yeah, I pulled some correlation to Firestone, and I don't know if it's because I'm trying to really jam Decky, and he dismantled Firestone once. I have a couple other Firestone guys in here that we'll get to, but I just wanted to ask.
To think, it's like RIP Firestone. We don't even have to research that course anymore. I'm trying to think of who else played well there.
I mean, well, Day, he's an Ohio guy. He's had his moments there, but there's a couple other guys. Shane Lowry is not here. But I looked at Firestone quite a bit this week. I'm not going to lie. Just a little tidbit. Working down, this is a really, so we break into the, the 8K range and that kind of second tier on a site like Fantasy Draft. And it's a lot of the young guys who I'm not sure, we'll see. We have Scotty Scheffler, we have Colin Morikawa, Neiman is there. And then we have some staples with Sneds, Leishman, Cam Smith, Spieth, Wolf as well. What do you make of this range? Who sticks out? Who's not so interesting?
I'm in on Morikawa. I like him. I like him this week. He's a California guy. The 2 times we've seen him, T21 at Sony, the ball striking was good, plus 3.2. T7 at the Tournament of Champions, ball striking was really good, plus 6.5. I mean, I feel like he's just been good every time we see him. I mean, 8,900, not cheap, but there's not a lot that I love in this range. I think it's between him and Scheffler. I think Scheffler will be a little bit more popular just because of what happened last week. But I kind of I like Morikawa. I like the local angle a little bit more with him. The betting market likes him. They have him around 30-1, Scheffler 35-1. So yeah, I'm in on Morikawa this week.
Listen, the guy's tee to green. He's been absolutely phenomenal. I worry more than most about his around the green game and his putting. It hasn't been stellar at the Sony. Came out roaring. I lucked out. He fell late. Decky was able to beat him in a head-to-head that I really needed. And listen, the guy's been very consistent. He hasn't played in a ton of fields of this caliber, but we'll have to see. The talent is there. I honestly don't have a ton of interest in him or Scotty Scheffler. I think they're fine plays. When I look at how my lineups are probably going to unfold, I think I'm going to have two players above them on most teams. And if that's the case, I don't know if I can make them my third man in, unless those first two are more balanced in nature. And that's fine with me just because I look down. What about, I mean, you just covered the young guys. What do you make of the, I guess, veterans in this group? Guys like Spieth, guys like Sneds, guys like Leishman.
Now, if I'm going anywhere, it's Leishman.
Yeah,
I'm not playing Spieth. This is obviously the state of his game. We've talked about it for what it feels like a year and a half now. Not good. This is just not a good track for him. On top of that, struggle not long off the tee. Hasn't been super accurate off the tee either. I don't think this is it's not a good fit for him, even if he was playing well. And, he just hasn't been playing well. We haven't seen him in a while. I mean, I hate this spot for Spieth. I don't know. I don't think I could put it any more bluntly than that. Snedeker. Oh God. Snedeker is just an enigma at this course. Another guy who just doesn't seem like this should be a good track for him, but absolutely just dominates here. 2 wins, 2 runners up, a couple top 10s. But again, I think people will go there because of the course history. Played well at the Sony. That's a much better course fit for him, in my opinion. That's more of a Sneds course than this is. So I think the ownership will get there with him. I don't understand how he plays well here, and that's just probably going to lead me to almost never play him. So yeah, I guess by default, I'd be going with Leishman, who he also has 2 runners up, has a T8, has a T9. I like him at a tough track. I think it could be a good fit for him. So if I'm going anywhere, it's Leishman, but I don't think I love any of those guys.
I like Leishman. I'm with you. I'm hoping he's healthy. He was a little banged up here and there. Hasn't been great, but I feel most comfortable with him. Listen, just to echo what you said, Sneds is never going to pop in the sense of he doesn't do it typically. But he's done it for long enough that we know that he can get it. Kind of like Spieth. Honestly, I think if you played Sneds, I'd be in a lineup. I'd be a lot more likely to roster Spieth in that exact same lineup because they have a similar skill set. They're not going to gain off the tee as much as some of these other guys. I don't really like the spot though, and I think Sneds will get a major bump from course history. Hatchman's here. He just pointed out Poa Greens. That's right. Sneds just tears them apart. That is a thing. We'll see what Spieth can do there, but Leishman would be my guy. The Wolfman, that's the toughest one for me because he's significantly cheaper now than Morikawa, and I don't know that he should be, but besides gaining off the tee, he literally doesn't do anything else good.
Yeah, it's funny. If you look at the off the tee and approach together from last week, it's like, oh, he was pretty decent. He gained like 2 strokes, but it was really he gained like 6 strokes off the tee and lost 4 strokes on approach. Like the approach was abysmal in those 2 rounds at the stadium course last week, but he just absolutely smashed it off the tee. And we've talked about this before with guys like Rahm. I mean, that can mitigate some of those approach numbers. You don't have to be as good off the tee if you're hitting it 350 right down the middle. You can have birdie opportunities that theoretically aren't gaining a ton of strokes on approach just because you have shorter and easier approaches than everybody. I mean, that being said, do you want guys that are just bleeding strokes on approach? No, not necessarily. But I do think this is a good fit for him. And I think, like you said, he's cheaper. I don't know if a ton of people will play him. I kind of like Wolf this week.
I want to back him. But I just don't. I mean, certainly in GPPs, it's still a guy, we know the talent is there. If Hovland ever gets back over here, he can join them in this pricing range, and we'll see what happens. But I think by lack of options, maybe he finds some. But I do like Leishman ahead of him. And just to round out this range, I don't mind taking some stabs with Ryan Palmer. He is a guy that, I don't really think of him when I think of this course per se, but he's playing pretty well. Talk about gaining off the tee. He just dismantled Sony. I know that's not even remotely similar in terms of a driving course. What else see here? But his results have been good, dating back to, this has been a while, but he's made a lot of cuts in a row. And the results so far this year, pretty quality. I think this is a decent spot to buy him. Length is not going to be an issue for him either.
No, I like him. Lost here in a playoff a couple years ago to, who was that? I think that was Day and Norin. Somebody, those guys were in the mix, I think.
Yeah, Norin. Yeah, it was the next day. It was Monday.
Yes. I actually bet him that week. Shout out to me, as Levitan would say. Even though he didn't win, I'm going to give myself a shout out.
Like it.
Yeah, so runner-up 2 years ago, T13 here last year. I agree. Yeah, I think he's a good fit. I don't know. I have like PTSD from rostering Ryan Palmer, so it's tough because you never know what you're going to get from him. But yeah, he's playing well. And yeah, 8K. This isn't. Yeah, it's a tough price range. The 8K range is I'm not in love with. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, there's not a ton that I'm really into.
Good players. I think there's good, interesting players, but there's no one that I'm looking at and saying, yeah, this is a guy that I'm really going to lock in. Morikawa is probably the guy I'm most excited about at 8,900. The other guys, I think there's a lot of question marks with players.
It'd be Leishman for me. What do you make of last guy? And then I want to say one general thing, but do you have any interest in Neiman? To me, the around the green is worrisome. He's more of a go and shoot, 20 under with 10 bogeys and 30 birdies on the card than what he needs to do here.
Yeah, I'm with you. And, we haven't talked about it a lot, but yeah, it is, regardless of, what you like to focus on from week to week. Anytime it's a difficult course, you're going to have to scramble at some point. And like you said, he seems like a guy more suited for, the Greenbrier or whatever, where you just make a ton of birdies. Scrambling is going to come into to play at some point this week. So yeah, guys that are bleeding strokes on around the green, it could be troublesome. And yeah, he's not cheap at 8,600.
No, he's not.
Or you could go with scrambling god, terrible golfer Cam Smith. You go totally guy can't hit a drive or an approach, but
Cam Smith, yeah, Cam Smith, I'm not going to back him. Congrats to him for winning.
Terrible. Put him in Cam Smith, Spieth, Snedeker. There you go.
If you want correlation, that's one way to do it.
I hope the wind blows. And rock hard.
Trick shot team. I will say though, I don't want to say, oh, well, it makes our job easier because we can just say this for anything, but there is an element of truth to this. When you get with strong fields, when we talk about majors, one of the questions I get all the time, it's like, oh, do you like this guy? If he's in the top 25, say prices, he's a pretty damn good golfer. And you're going to be able to make a case for him. You're really going to have to look at this in terms of lineup construction, in terms of ownership, in terms of leverage, because, in a field like this, starting from like Wolf up, if those guys get going, they get a hot putter, they're dialed in, they're going to be there. There's no doubt in my mind they have the talent to take apart any course. So just keep that in mind. Maybe not Spieth, honestly, because he might just be absolute dust at this point.
He's
terrible. But I'm sure at some point, by random chance, he'll do something.
No, he'll gain like 14 strokes putting, and
he does that though, and he comes in like 30th. It needs to do more than that.
He'll either gain 14 strokes putting, or he'll be like T2 through 54 holes and then shoot like 87 on Sunday.
Well, that's what we see. You were talking about this at the top of the show. Let's not get crazy all the time. Oh, like, oh my God, I should have played this creative player. And then you look where did he end on Sunday? Not where is he at 24 holes in. Let's just keep it reasonable, people. But kicking it off, Lanto Griffin, your boy, Francesco Molinari. This is an interesting range, actually. Guys like Cam Champ, Griot, Kokrak, Benyon. What do you make of the upper sevens? What are going to be, squarely in the mid-range type prices?
One of the dumbest things I've ever done was really be into Molinari last week at that event.
I wasn't, just for the record.
Yeah, no, you were smart. Like, you don't want Molinari at a place where like 30, you got to get to like 3,700. That was really dumb. I don't like him again this week. I don't think it's a good course fit. It's a better course in the fact that par is a better score here than it was last week, and I think that benefits him. But as a short hitter, I don't like him here, and he was awful last week. I really like – oh, God, this is going to hurt. I really like Cameron Champ this week.
At least you didn't say Kokrak.
No, I
Okay.
never like Kokrak's. Yeah, he's like Ryan Palmer. Put Kokrak with Palmer, and those are like you have no clue what you're gonna get. No, I love Champ. I think the price is really good, 7,800. You're not having to shell out too much for him, and he's been a lot better. He was rough. He was very rough last year, but he was 21st last week. Where is he? I gained 1.3 with the ball striking. That's only over 2 rounds, so positive ball striking at the stadium course. T21 the week before gained 4 strokes with the ball striking. So the ball striking has been, or not the week before, that was a Tournament of Champions. Gained 4 strokes with the ball striking there. It's been solid. We know he's got unbelievable length off the tee, so this is a really good fit for him. And like I said, I think we've seen him 2 wins. Obviously not the strongest fields that he's beaten, but he's got the pedigree. He's got the course fit. He's playing better. He's not expensive. I like him.
I like the price. Honestly, and listen, I'm a big Wolf fan. I'm not a big Cameron Champ fan. When you really look at, especially lately, the strokes gained, it's pretty simple. Like, Wolf has not done a lot with the approach either. And I will say, to his credit, Cameron Champ is starting to get it together here and there. Now, I still think that the only reason he has, when you gain 10 strokes putting like that, he's done that a couple of times. I don't know what to make of things of that nature, but the length, if there's one guy in the field who won't be bothered with length, this is him. And unlike the guys we talked about at the top, I do think that Cameron Champ is still in the bucket where course fit is more important. I don't think his game is where he's apt to handle, some of these different types. So I don't mind it, which is a little surprising. With you on Molinari, not going to go there. Benyon and Grillo, 2 of my, look at this. Benyon's calling.
Is that Benyon right there?
I don't know.
There we go. Sorry.
But we got Grillo was not bad at Sony. He gained a ton, as he always does, tee to green. His putting was positive, and that's a massive good sign. So I don't mind him as just a standard play. The guy I want to ask you about is Benyon. He was rolling.
You have it backwards with Grillo, though. If the putting was positive last time out, there's not a chance in hell it's going to be anywhere near positive.
So he's got to lose like 10 strokes here to keep his minus 5 average.
Zig when the other people are zagging. Yeah, you want him coming off like the -10, and then when he's even. No, I just don't. Not in love here with the fit for Grillo either. Not a ton of length. He's accurate off the tee, and I've sworn off him anyway. I don't know. The ball striking for I think it could be a good course fit for him, but the ball striking for from what we've seen, not a ton of measured rounds, but it hasn't been great. And that scares me with him a little bit.
It scares me too. I will say though, and this could just be, there is a very real chance that it's smoke and mirrors, because the 3 tournaments lately where he was really good, we have 0 measured rounds from. So when he went to the Asian swing, he was 6th at the CJ Cup, 8th at the Zoizo, and 14th at the WGC. I don't have those on my screen. He was terrible last week at the Shriners and Safeway. I do have those. So I don't know what it would look like. Think if it was reversed, like there may be a recency bias for no reason.
That's a great point. I mean, it's really hard. We're still early in the season, and we have so many events where we don't have shot link from. So you're really trying to piece things together. That's a really good point that I didn't even think about.
I like the fit for him. But there's no doubt, as you mentioned, we're going to find out, we will see these. He needs to gain. We know the strength of his game is with the irons and around the green. He's an awful putter, but you could do worse than that. I know I rip on Kokrak a ton. I think this is a good course for him, but if he's even remotely popular, I'll continue to fade. Maybe I'll put him in some pure bomber stacks, but bomber stacks are going to be ridiculously popular just because of the nature of the course.
Is he getting? Are people going to want to play Kokrak this week?
I don't know. I never know. I think last week went a long way to people realizing that what we saw last year was one of the just most ungodly runs.
I totally forgot about that.
He was just a print fest. And even when he would play bad, he would just get a hole in one.
It was like Derrick Henry of PGA. I just thought about that.
Last year at the Farmers, he came in 20th. He gained 5.2 strokes putting. Yeah.
Just putting people in coffin week
That's
after
body
week
bag.
after week who
In
didn't believe.
particular. Like unreal. All right.
Dude,
Written down. We crossed the Mickelson Bubba portion of the show here. So if the viewership drops off, it's not our fault.
how much Bubba this week? I mean, just Lock City, right?
Yeah, Lock City, all right. Probably 0 because he's, like I said, coming off a nice top 20 at the Hero, but then you realize that there's only, I think, 19 guys in there. Not good, Bubba.
Can I make a case for him?
Please.
Okay. He's 7,500, right? And we know that there's like Bubba courses and there's not Bubba courses. Now, for whatever reason, he hasn't played here much recently, but he's won here, right? It's like he has to have some good vibes at this course, right? It's a Bombers course. You need off the tee. He's got that. He's cheap. He's a hell of a scorer if he does happen to make the cut, which we don't know what the hell is going to happen with him. He's most likely, if he makes the cut, he's outperforming, where he finishes. He's going to make birdies. He's going to make eagles. I'm going to play some of them just because I feel like he's a good course fit. Obviously, he's won here, and he's very cheap. Obviously, extremely volatile and hasn't been good, or we haven't really seen him, but I'm going to take a shot with him.
So I will say this. I wasn't too high on Bubba, but now I'm looking runner-up at Bridgestone once. He's got a little Firestone in him. And the other course that kept popping up, and again, I don't think this is a seamless comp, but it's Travelers of all things. River Highlands up in Connecticut. Bubba,
Russell Knox week.
And this is what I'm about to say. So I said at the beginning of the show, I want to be clear. Being long off the tee is an advantage. Russell Knox ideally would be better suited at like Honda or Heritage, but Russell Knox has won Travelers. He's came in 5th at Bridgestone, and he actually has a pretty good record here. Not a ton of noise, but he's made 3 of the last 4 cuts. He was 10th. He's got a top 10 to his name. I'm looking for him to make the cut. Do I think he competes? No, I don't. But he can handle this course, even though, yes, he is not remotely long off the tee, and it is a big test with his long irons.
It's tough for me because I know at the top I said, well, I'm not just going to X a guy out because he's not long off the tee. I think there are shorter hitters that can play well at longer courses. He just seems like a guy where we know where he's going to play well, and it's always, always, always the same types of courses. They're always short courses. They're always courses with Bermuda greens. This isn't short, and they don't have Bermuda greens. So I don't know. I just feel like it's always the same places.
And you're not wrong about that. You're not. To me, listen, this is what happened. And I do this. I'm more of a field player. I have a correlation to Bridgestone, and I have a correlation to Travelers. And Knox is one of...
You're going with it.
I'm going with it. Not now. Am I overhauling my lineups with Russell Knox? No. But he's one of the few guys where he does not fit this course that I'm pretty comfortable having some exposure to. Right next to him, and Chad brought this up because Chad is sharp, Bud Cauley. Low-key, not a bad fit, doing some things. Do you have any interest in a guy that I've been saying for about 2 years is a macro buy? 4th last week.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm in the same sense of you. It was like we're just kind of betting on the talent that we've seen for years and hoping that it comes through. Yeah, I don't mind him. Can we get back to Bubba? I'm just infatuated with him.
Please.
Is he going to be... I know he's not going to be popular. Are people going to have the same mindset that I am of like, oh, it's 7,500 on a Bubba track. He's an ultimate GPP play. But then next thing you know, he's like 12%, which really you don't want.
So I'll say this. The lack of course history definitely helps. But the problem is people, I think, really look for the quick and easy of like, oh, this course is super long. I need bombers. He might be the first guy people think of.
Yes.
And that's a problem. Like, oh, I'll just play like Bubba because, he hits it so far. Like, that's what you need. There's some truth to that, but there's also other ways to approach it. So the more I look, I will be interested in Bubba. That's someone not to punt. Tomorrow night, 8:30 Eastern, me and Jason Roslin, I will have better takes on Bubba. I want to look at what the ownership is coming in at because that will determine it. Tim's right. If he's like chalk in this range, I'll probably look to roll the dice and fade him. But if I can get leverage with 10 or 15%, maybe I will try to do that and see. Harris English also loves this course. You mentioned him last week a bit. Do you have any interest there in the Georgia Bulldog?
Yeah, I mean, he has a good record here, which I would think, he seems like more of a short track kind of guy, more of a Bermuda kind of guy, like Knox. But yeah, I mean, you can't deny how well he's played here. He's an 8th, a 2nd, a 14th, all in the last 5 trips here. And yeah, I mean, he was just so good in the fall. I think 7,400. I think that's a good price for him. So yeah, I do have some interest in Harris English.
Fair enough. All right, let's close out the sevens. Then we'll talk about the cheapies and we'll call it a day. But what do you see kind of below Harris English? We've got guys like Lucas Glover, like Sabatini. Pat Perez is interesting to me for Telly. Floor is yours. Go ahead.
Okay, and I'm going right back to this guy because you made fun of me last week so much so that I didn't even play him.
I shamed you. Sorry.
You shamed me right out of Cameron Davis. But he was T29 last week. Not great.
But he was in it for a little while.
Yeah, he was decent. And we'll go right back to where he was T9 at the Sony, where he gained a crap load of strokes off the T9 approach. And then he was T3 at the Aussie PGA. Not a great field, but 3 good finishes in a row. And a guy who we've kind of been monitoring his ball striking for like a year and a half and wanting to play him. I haven't played much of him. But, I mean, he's been good and he's not expensive. So I like him. I like Fratelli. I think it's just a guy, just a class player at 7K. I mean, if he's playing well, I think he's a good value. You never really know what you're going to get out of him. But, I mean, I think Fratelli is definitely a good tournament play in this range. I don't know. I don't think I can get to Pat Perez, though.
I don't mind Pat Perez in this spot, actually. He's someone that I am having a little trouble with deciphering what exactly is going on with his course history. He's got a runner-up and a 4th, and then he's got a lot of bad results in there. I think the course is it's not great, but I don't think it's terrible either. The form is pretty good. He didn't score great at the Sony, but he gained off the tee. He gained with the approach. He just lost 3 strokes putting. He's made a string of cuts going back to Shriners. I think you could do worse at 7K. Fratelli's right there as well. Cam Davis, we'll see. I certainly, boy, all the times I played him. Do you have any love? One more guy, and then we'll go to the cheapies. In Cameron Tringale, or are you not going to go there?
No. I don't know. I feel like we talked about it. Plays decent. I don't love him at this course fit. I don't know how much upside he has, but I mean, this is definitely a course where you're going to want some length. He's just, I don't know. It's kind of just boring. I feel like a shorter course, a weaker field would be more beneficial for Tringale. And even then we haven't seen a ton of upside out of him. So no, I don't like him here.
Fair enough. Yeah, Chad was just talking about Keegan. We didn't really talk about him. I think he's fine. I think he could be sneaky popular. That's my one concern with old Keegan Bradley.
Is he a Firestone guy?
Let's see. Let's go to the video.
I feel like he's one.
Keegan never does anything useful for me ever. Whoa, what do you know? He's won Bridgestone, and he's came in second at Bridgestone.
There we go.
And he came in second at Travelers. You see what goes on these shows? Mega Mind.
Wow. There we go. Let's lock it in. I'm going on Bovada right now. Yep. Max bet Keegan at what is he? Well, 80 to 1. That's not even that good.
It's amazing. I looked at the outrights, and some of these guys, I was like, oh, strong field. They're going to be 250 to 1. They're like 35 to 1, which is why I bet Finau. Anyway.
Yeah. The golf betting is the biggest racket. It's like.
You tell them.
Yeah, they just make everybody 35 to 1. It's like, no, not everybody. You can't make everybody 35 to 1. Somebody's got the odds never go. They only go down. They never go up on anybody. It's like, this isn't right.
Nope. Which is why, perfect segue, you should check out. I have a betting article posted. And I went through all that nonsense for you guys. Picked out a couple of outrights, a couple head-to-heads and whatnot. So go check that out on the site. And it's perfect time to say, if you guys haven't signed up, PGA Strategy, all one word. You can get in there, 50% off your first week. Got everything. We've got a ton of tools, projections, ownership, of course, Slack and all that. We've had a lot of signups, and we love all the new additions. It's been fun on Thursdays and Fridays, sweating it out with everyone. Hope to see some new faces in there soon. Just leave 2,000 in the bank. Yeah, no one can do. Don't do that this week, please. But golf salary, you actually can get creative like that. What do you make of the cheapies now? We're sub 7K. There's not a lot of names. Grayson is there. People like that. What are we doing?
It's tough because I feel like there's a lot of intriguing guys down here, but they're very dangerous guys and guys that I could just see being awful at the same time.
Like Jacob Holmes?
Yeah. We'll start with JB. Was just god awful. Was at the Tournament of Champions where I played him because I was like, oh, he's really cheap, and we're getting 4 guaranteed rounds, and he was pathetically terrible. But again, like the course fit is good, the price is good. He's got in his last 5 trips here, he has 4 finishes or 3 finishes better than T6 or T6 or better. I don't mind him for a dart throw. Going down, Sepp Straka seems to be back. He was really, really good last week. And I think this is actually I would think a tougher course is a better fit than a birdie fest for him. I don't know. So last week seemed kind of like a strange place for him to break out. But somebody on Twitter had mentioned, he was really bad, but his final round at Sony the week prior was a 65. And he really built off that. So he went 65 for his final round at Sony. Then he went 65, 69. I'm sorry, 69, 65, 68, 66. So like 5 really good rounds in a row. So I don't mind him here. I think this is actually a better fit for the winning score. It doesn't need to be 30 under. You mentioned Grayson. I mean, I don't know. Where did that come from last week?
It's amazing what happens when he doesn't withdraw. I don't know. It's very difficult for me to know. He gained everywhere, and not just a little. He gained like consistently in all 4 metrics.
He's an off the tee guy. I mean, when his game is on.
He's just been so bad for so long. You're not going to get him at like 0.1% like we saw last week, but I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership either. So I'm cautiously optimistic he could make some of my lineups. I do want to say, and I don't know who it is. If you watch the show, remind me in Slack. We had a sub who was not adamant, but he liked Sepp Straka quite a bit last week, made a good case for it. That man is much smarter than you and me combined. So shout out to that person. And one of the many reasons why it's very cool to discuss golf over at Awesemo. But Carlos Ortiz making cuts. It's made.
I don't know. People were really into him last week, weren't they?
Yeah, he did not pan out.
No, I don't think I'm going there. I think if we're down here, it's going to be Straka. I'll take a shot with Keith Mitchell at 6,700. Kind of the same thing as just basically on course fit, on being able to make birdies and eagles. I know he's not a Poe guy. That could be problematic, but I think at 6,700 you could do a lot worse. Even Doc Redman at 6,500. I mean, I know I keep saying him, but it's just the off the tee and on approach has been so good. He's got like 25 measured rounds so far in the fall, and he's gaining about 1.5 when you combine off the tee and on approach. Just consistently good every week. And I think that could be rewarded here, a place where, I think ball striking is more of a premium than some of these easier courses where it's like everybody hits the fairway and then let's see who can hit it to 8 feet and make a bunch of putts. That's definitely not what we're going to be seeing this week. And the price is good. I mean, 67 or 6,500. I think that's very good for the quality of ball striking you're getting out of them.
Did you happen to see Harry Higgs last week?
I saw that he was terrible, and then I saw he shot like 63 on Friday. I saw he was like way up and down, right?
So Harry Higgs 2 weeks ago made a quad to really take him out of Sony. Then he started the Amex and he made another quad. Managed to get it all the way back. Then he made another. So he has 3 quadruple bogeys in his last 2 events.
Wow.
He shot 7 under with 2 quads last week. He had 16 birdies and an eagle, only 3 bogeys and 2 quadruple bogeys. This is a guy that I like to play. I'm going to continue to play him. You're not going to need a ton of ownership. A handful of percentages will do it. Listen, when you're making 2 quad bogeys and you're shooting 7 under, I know this is a totally different mentality. He's an off the tee guy. I'm gonna cautiously hope that he can avoid the blow up number and see what he can do.
You're a Harry Higgs guy.
I really am. You're a Doc Redmond guy.
I am a Doc Redmond guy. We should have some sort of like season-long bet.
I think you have the advantage, but we're not gonna.
No, well, he's like Grillo though. I mean, he's great tee to green and just literally cannot putt.
Me and Harry Higgs though, we have a connection. He's someone like Russell Henley where when I really need him, I can will it, and that helps.
I got a 0.1 percenter for you.
I don't get many victory laps. Speaking of 0.1 percenters, Chase Seifert last week was in. Now he did not finish strong, but that man was fantastic for me, and he really helped in some of my lineups. But take it away.
You're gonna laugh as soon as I say the name. Ted Potter Jr.
Oh God, you should have. Didn't you say him last week, or did you not say him?
I
certainly didn't.
I didn't say it. No, I don't think I've ever said Ted Potter Jr. before.
I mean, he is like the Hooters Tour
40. Yeah, shout out to Baroff, Hooters Tour legend, 12-time Hooters Tour winner, Ted Potter Jr., prolific closer.
What a goat.
No, the ball swing was really good in the 2 rounds at the stadium course last week. T37, but gained 3.6 in those 2 rounds. The week before, he was T7 at the Sony, gained 4 strokes with the ball striking. So the last 6 measured rounds, the last 2 weeks, really good ball striking. No one's going to play him. Can we make up some sort of a Pebble Beach correlation? Must be a putting god because he won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. I mean, I could just make things up here at this point, but
all right. That's boy, Ted Potter Jr. I don't know, man. I really don't with him. I
just play him in like 1 out of 1,000 lineups and you'll be overweight on the field.
That's the one benefit. And listen, the way it, and we'll talk about this more tomorrow night. I don't see anybody down here that's going to garner any significant, it's not like you're going to see massive chalk anyway, but even condensed ownership at any capacity, I don't see it. Do you have any interest though? And chat brought him up, and I get it. In Trey Mullinax, who's the flat min.
Was he hurt? He hasn't played in forever. I don't know what happened to him, right?
Trey Mullinax. Well, okay.
I think he got hurt because I don't know when the last time he played was, unless I'm
is undisclosed. He returned from a lengthy absence at the Korn Ferry Tour Bahamas Great Exuma Classic, where he tied for 58th in his first start since Barbasol last July. He collected a top 25 during the last Torrey Pines appearance in 2019. Boy.
I think everybody knows you're taking a huge risk if you play. I mean, I don't know. It's like he didn't exactly light it up in the Bahamas on the Korn Ferry Tour last week. We don't really know what's wrong with him. He wasn't that good when he was playing every week, so no, I don't think I'm going to get there.
Yeah, I mean, him and Hagee are absolute bombers, but those are the type of people. I think Hagee is a perfect example of what you mentioned about Bubba. He won't be like 0.1% owned because people are just like, oh, he leads the tour in driving distance. Let me just play him. The rest of his game is just not competitive, in my opinion.
Plus, Ben Coley bet Hagee and wrote him up in his betting article, so people will play Hagee. But I still think if you take ownership out of it, Hagee, I'd feel way more confident playing Hagee, who at least made the cut last week, than Mullinax. We really have no clue what was going on with him.
Yeah, listen, I get why people are drawn to the Bombers because it is an advantage, but it's not a plug and play where, there are other ways to do it. For me, Maverick, I played him last week. Probably going to continue to do that when he's at these prices, and we'll see what he can continue to do.
Yeah, he was decent last week.
He was fine. Yep, did his thing. And listen, I don't know how often I'll have to dip down here. Maybe if you go like super aggressive and you have a couple guys up top, you might need someone, but there's a lot of balanced builds that I feel pretty comfortable. And you can end with like a Fratelli, in that, or Keegan if you're really going balanced. And that's a pretty good last man in.
Yeah, and I mean, a stronger field, I think it's hard to see some of these, the really weak fields like last week where you have just, it's a weak field, it's wide open, it's a birdie fest, and you see these guys come out of nowhere and win and contend. It's really hard for me to, you're not going to see a 6K or a 6 flat guy or a sub 6,300 guy contend this week. It's just not as likely a scenario as it was at the American Express, where it was just a wide open event, a weird
Andrew
format.
Landry.
I think those guys are more in play in events like that.
Absolutely. Like, did I think Andrew Landry was going to win last week? I barely knew he was in the tournament, but the concept of him winning, we talked about it all week, the lack of win equity. This is like, WGC style, where the cream, I would be absolutely stunned if like a guy who really has no business, in the field wins. That would be stunning. I think this comes from the top. I think this comes from, guys who are just good players, the Keegans of the world, Bud Cawleys, mid-range guys that have been on tour and have experience, if you're looking for a dark horse. On that note, before we bounce on out of here, did you bet anyone?
I haven't bet anyone yet. I might just bet Champ at 80-1.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'm feeling good. I really like the course for him.
Big step up.
But he's been better. I think there's still some of the hangover because he was so bad last year. But the game seems to have turned around. I think I like the pedigree, obviously. And I just thought that we're still getting him at cheap price in DFS. We're still getting pretty decent odds on him. I'm not saying he's Morikawa or Scheffler, but I think he's a talent for sure.
He is. He's unique. I don't want to get too crazy, but I will say possible hot take that Cameron Champ is actually better at shorter courses.
Like a woodland type?
Yeah, like a woodland type. Like his length is still an advantage no matter where he goes. But I feel like when he has the chances in this to really go aggressive, he's just out of control.
So then I'll probably figure it out in about 10 years after he wins like
Heritage
the Harbor Town and Colonial and like the Travelers. And then like in 2030, I'm going to start coming around to that idea.
I don't want to, it's not a gimmicky courses that I think of, but I look at, I don't know. I mean, Sanderson Farms is pretty long, but Safeway is not. We'll see. Time will tell. Listen, I'm somewhat there with you. You like them more than me, but you could do a lot worse. Any final thoughts before we bounce on out of here for the day?
Yeah, I mean, I think I kind of like the overall themes of the week. Just totally different than last week. I think you got to focus more on guys that are better in tougher scoring environments, better in stronger fields. So it's really a completely opposite week from last week, even though last week's event was in California. I mean, those were not Poe Greens.
No.
It's just completely different. So yeah, I think I'm just focusing on guys who I think can grind it out a little bit more, and guys, like you said, maybe the mid-range guys, but guys who we can see compete in strong fields and compete in bigger type events this week. I'll be focusing on those guys.
Yep. And honestly, it gels really nicely with what I wanted to say to close it out, which is I don't think that there's a ton of carryover. We've seen a lot of guys who have excelled in swing season, who excelled last week. This is a totally different mindset. My player pool is going to consist of mostly really prominent, experienced people. I may have some guys that I think are really talented, the Mavericks of the world, as I mentioned. But last week I was opening it up to guys that really had no results of any kind because it was so wide open. Here, you better have something, whether it's a incredible pedigree, good course history, a skill set that fits. I'm not going to be taking that many stabs on guys that we don't know much about. So I think you should be cautious if you're doing that. What you also should do on your way out is hit that like button. We do appreciate it. And come on by tomorrow, 8:30 Eastern, me and Jason Roslin answering your questions, talking lineup construction. This is a really good string of golf, Tim. I know we talked right before the show. Farmers, waste management, plenty going forward. We'll bounce on out of here. Thanks, everyone. Keep you posted on the schedule for next week. I know Tim is traveling, but we'll have something going on. And if anyone has any questions, find us on Slack or Twitter, and we'll see you guys next week.